Let me take a look here at your method section.
Can you get some copies? I have a file, but I don't think I have a link in my.
Yeah, copies, like photocopies?
From the file.
Oh, yeah. How many do you need?
15. It's called vertical approval.
Okay, the first thing I would suggest here in the methods section, Hope, is to remove the page break. So the method section is going to be right here as on page 12. Right after your last paragraph for your literature review, you want to bring up your method section. So you're going to choose one participant for your
Yes,
one teacher?
I wrote that because I already chose one, but I was wondering if it was needed to choose another one.
Let's look at your research questions.
Which is the what's the efficiency of the big This one is 205.
221.
I don't know. How am I?
No. Or Claudia probably knows. I don't know. Oh, yeah, I have no idea. Okay. Yeah, I think you can choose. Let's see, because you're going to focus on small groups, right, in that class. How many groups in that? If you let's say you choose one teacher, how many groups will you focus on in that one group, in the one class?
3 small groups.
And can you record each of those 3?
Yes, you told me to get at least 3 recording devices.
Okay. So and you can do that. Okay. So yeah, let's work with one teacher and focus on those 3 groups within that one teacher. Now, the critical question at this point is which teacher did you choose and why? So do you have some thoughts about which teacher you chose and why?
The description I wrote there is about the same teacher I told you from my school. I applied all the questionnaires to many teachers, well, 10 at least. 3 of them told me they were not willing to be observed, and the other one were concerning about the principal's permission, and so I decided to keep with my decision.
So why did you choose that teacher?
Because of the characteristics he wrote in this paper.
Okay, and what are those characteristics that he wrote on that paper?
Because she thinks that task-based learning can be applied by taking advantage of both the teacher and the students, and also those students who never participate, they can be also involved in the activities she applies in her classes.
Okay, so she replied that she implements task-based learning.
Yes, and also she says that she assigns the roles in teams to try to give a balance in each team to get better results and encourage students' participation.
Okay, so you need to say something like that. Here, the participant that I chose has, you need to check your grammar here, but you want to include information about this. Okay, so participant, she is a bachelor's in she. Okay, so all right. I think actually you can say less about. Okay, a little bit. Just say things about. Try to describe a little bit more about her education, how long she's been uh, teaching in general. Is
But I think that if I need to write this, I would have to have an interview first because I wrote this about only with this, so I can know more information.
Ajá.
What I wrote
Pero
there
no
is-
tienes información del maestro. Creo que practicamos aquí que también incluimos un heading que tienen variables independientes, así hablando de esto. ¿No tienes?
the interview guide.
Yeah, no. In the questionnaire. Como aquí, por ejemplo, puedes hablar de
Sure. I think yes.
tiene como este maestro, si tiene 7 años. Y aquí estás hablando de tienen 7 años con este programa, pero aquí dice de experiencia. No sé si es lo
Yes.
mismo.
Experience working in the start program.
Porque aquí no dice en nuestro programa, nada más en general. ¿Cuántos años tienen? Si no, pues
Ya.
nada más para aclarar eso. Claro, si necesitas una entrevista está bien, pero el detalle es que aquí hablando un poco más de información sobre el grupo, sobre la maestra, pero puedes hablar un poco lo que tienes aquí, pero no tanto, así de...
Do you think it would be necessary to have an interview, for example, today regarding information about your group?
Well, I think in your case, you're going to be... Well, you're probably going to need to talk to her right before the group note to see when she's... Or not. Were you planning on doing an interview before to see when she was going to apply task-based learning, or does she apply task-based learning every day?
She's supposed to apply task-based learning every day.
Okay, and they work in groups every day?
Most of the classes.
Okay, I think you're going to want to observe days where the students are working in groups. So if they're not working in groups every day, you'll probably need to talk to her beforehand and say, are you planning on working in groups?
And should I write it down, like a script, when I ask her about if she plans to apply?
Well, you could do a semi-structured interview and have some key questions, just like we talked about what you observed, even though you haven't observed, but it's the same idea. So think about different key questions that you might ask about. In this case, I would think related to how the students are going to be working in this week or next week or the next 3 weeks. How often? Is it every day? Maybe get a copy of the lesson plan, maybe, I don't know. But so you can kind of schedule your days and ask, when can I observe? So I think you can record that interview and kind of make it as an interview and also kind of a planning or meeting of the minds, so to speak. So you talk to the teacher and reach an agreement when you can observe. So you don't observe days that aren't going to be useful, right, for you. So if she knows, for example, these days they're going to either be applying a quiz or an exam or some other different activity that they don't do specific task-based learning, particular groups, then you can avoid showing up and not having any information.
Yeah.
So you probably want to do a short interview. Now, for example, she has a bachelor's in arts in English language teaching, and maybe state where if it's from here.
Yes.
Okay, so you might want to include that here. Just more specific, she teaches basic level.
Her age also?
If you want, if you think that's, yeah, if you want to mention her age, if she is willing to share that. The level she teaches. Now you say basic or low level. If you can ask, is that a B1, B2 according to the Common European Framework?
Well,
Or
B1.
some others? Okay.
Students are supposed to reach B2 by the end of elementary school.
Okay, so maybe put that in there.
Monday? Please type something.
Okay,
so that I can
sure. All right, so
more about teachers' profile as well as students.
Include more. I'm going to say independent variables, and what I mean by independent variables.
So they can remember.
Right. Now, include independent variables, and then I'm going to put in parentheses about the teacher and the group. Okay, so experience, education, group level, age of the students. For that? Or do you have that? Okay, yes. If you have it, fine.
At the end.
Okay, yeah. Well, these are just examples. If you already have it, that's fine. Group level, age of the students.
Common European
Etc. How many words do you have here?
500.
600. I try to get closer to 500. And I think a lot of the participants definitely, you can cut that back. Yeah. Here, just start off with so avoid there is, there are. Start off with the instruments. So if you want, you can mention the 3 instruments and then talk about each one. Okay. So you can say questionnaires, interview guides, and were used for this. Yeah, observation sheets were used for this. Okay. You can say, so here, the first one was a questionnaire. So start here. The questionnaire, y tú sigues, de qué de questionnaire. See? So I'm going to cross this out. And you can say the questionnaire and then talk about the questionnaire. Typically we talk about describe the questionnaire, and then if you want to talk about why you implement it, fine. But start off first by describing the what. Okay. You're not going to describe the how because the how comes later in the procedure, right? But and the why is optional. What's more important is the what. But if you want to include the why, that's also fine. Okay, you don't need to include that it has a header or an introduction. Okay, what you want to describe about the questionnaire is the content of the questions themselves, or the items. Okay, so here, and the purpose of the questionnaire. So notice that you haven't described the questionnaire. See what I mean? See that? So the purpose of the questionnaire, it's okay if you want to mention that, but describe the questionnaire first.
Like it was designed to EFL teachers or something like this.
What type of questions? Did you have open or closed questions?
Okay.
And just the main idea of the questions. What were you asking? You wanted to find out. You had questions about the teacher's experience using test-based learning, how often. So you just generally want to summarize what type of questions you were asking. And in this case, you could also include the question types, like open questions. Oops. Okay. Okay, you want to keep everything. You want to bring all this into one paragraph. After that, a second instrument design implemented was an interview. Okay. Okay. So after that, the second thing was interview, whereby having in mind okay, again, the interview guide. What type of questions are you going to include in the question? They kind of describe it more about the actual content of the questions. Okay, and you can maybe discuss that this was to complement what you observed. See?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, are you observing first, or I mean, you have an interview guide.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Make sure you present your instruments in the same order that you apply them.
Yeah.
Because I think we talked about the observation first and then the interview guide, correct? Before today's discussion. Really?
Yes.
See, observing first in the interview or not? No, we didn't do that. Okay. So
Yes,
you're
that's
not.
why I wrote this way.
Okay, so you're not going to have an interview after the observation.
It says first the questionnaire, then the interview guide, and at the end the observation sheet.
Uh-huh.
Yes, that is why.
Uh-huh.
That is the same order I wrote, isn't it?
Uh-huh. So I'm asking,
Yes.
¿no vas a tener una entrevista y después la observación?
La interview guide,
¿No vas a implementar una entrevista después la observación?
¿Otra?
Te pregunto.
No lo había contemplado más bien.
Okay, pues just consider it.
Como no lo habíamos hablado, yo tampoco lo había contemplado.
Bueno, so think about it, because most of you are doing interviews after the observations. Now, I know in this case, the interview before the observation is an option, certainly. Okay, in your case, it makes sense, and some of the students are not doing an interview before; they're doing it after. But everybody's doing one after, because sometimes you might observe something and you may have some questions, some doubts, some things that you may need to ask the teacher to better understand what you observed. That's very likely, and it could also be the case in your case.
Okay,
you may see
those
some
questions may be focused to the students' interaction, to the students' profile. Yes, so that I saw this about this student.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about
Right.
his or her behavior?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
So here's the thing: you might have, just consider it in your procedure. If you think that you need to have one afterwards, because you probably will need to have an interview afterwards. Yeah. And the interview that you have before is going to be different than the interview that you have after.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, and just double check your grammar. Okay. After that, the second instrument design was implemented and implemented. Let's see this. The second instrument was an interview guide where by having in mind, I mean, you could start this sentence here. Okay, based on the research questions. Okay, so start based on the research questions. An interview guide was designed and implemented, and then talk about the instrument. Then talk about the types of questions that you included in the interview guide. Yeah. Some more questions were developed in order to obtain specific. Like here, you can delete this. And here, so I would rearrange the wording that I mentioned and then state specifically the. Well, I'm recording everything here, so I would go back. All right, so I'm not going to write the whole sentence out. Just take a look at this first section here. Okay. Each question had a chart where WH, this is italics. So each question had a chart. All right. Okay. Now the C Appendix B. And should be like this. Capital S. All right, so you capitalize the word C and capitalize appendix.
Also with appendix A before.
Yeah, it can be A, B, sure. C. Yeah. And then here, we want to bring this up one paragraph.
Okay.
Third instrument designed and implemented. Yeah, designed and implemented. I would use this as the subject. An observation sheet
was
So an observation sheet was implemented, and where all the aspects related to the EFO. So here you want to be more specific. So describe. I mean, you can just get rid of this and say observation sheet contained. Now, again, you're okay. Irrelevant aspects of the class, a brief description of the activity. All right. What was on the observation? What is on the observation sheet? Do you have your observation sheet here?
I didn't bring the modified one.
Okay. Do you remember what was on the observation sheet?
Yes. Only the time, the activity, and a description of what the activity was.
All right. So, how would you describe that instrument?
It was designed to observe the students' interaction in small groups, to observe the activities they perform, the time it spent, and the times the teacher approaches to small groups, the way they reacted.
All right. So, if I were to describe this instrument, here's how I would describe it. The instrument, the observation sheet included the time of each activity, the classification or the name of the activity, and the description, where I notated different information about task-based learning. Punto. Nada más. But you have to mention these three things. Imagine you were describing this instrument. I didn't see it. I know we see it, right? Because it's an annex. But describe it, right? Describe it. And in this case, you're talking about time, activity, description. Okay. And so a brief description of the activity. So so time, activity, and description. So I would reword this. I'll carry out in a moment. And go in order, right? So you're writing down the time first, right? Time, and then activity, and then description. So describe it, time, activity, and description in that order. Participation of the students. All right, so this is the idea here. You just maybe reword it, but this is the heart of what you need to focus on here. Now watch your spacing here. Now when I say spacing, we need to make sure we maintain equal spacing between the heading and the paragraphs. Notice how you have more spacing between procedure and the procedure. So if you select here, between the heading procedure and the paragraph, okay, notice how you have more space than you do between these sentences. This is double spaced, and here you have more space. So sometimes you have to come back here. In this case, you'll have to click remove space before paragraph, remove space after paragraph, but you're going to need to probably select your entire document so that you make this change one time and you don't have to mess with it again.
With the whole?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you need to check if you're having, if your headings, okay, if the spacing's okay, then you don't need to, but this one's okay. So, like here, you need to check your entire document with your spacing. See that?
Okay.
This looks okay here. This is fine, looks like. Okay, so, maybe it's not every heading, but you need to double check, make sure your spacing is okay.
Teacher, I told you later is because I have class at night.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and continue working on this. Go ahead and start collecting your data this week. Okay. Start. And we've got 3 weeks, so we have this week and 2 other weeks after this week to complete.
Okay, maybe I can see the teacher today and have like a brief interview that I can record.
Okay.
Asking about when she plans to implement test-based learning.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So, all right.
I can have a script for tomorrow and come by and show you.
Sure. You come by anytime between today and Wednesday. I won't be here in the office on Thursday and Friday, but you can come by anytime.
Okay.
The 4th Wednesday.
I have that doubt. You didn't come last Friday, right?
No, I was here last Friday.
I didn't come.
Oh.
Yes, did I? No.
I don't think so.
Because sorry. Yo pensé que me dijo que la del viernes la pospusiéramos, lo pusiéramos así, por eso le dije, bueno, entonces ¿por qué no vine? Eso creo que sí estoy seguro.
No, yo sí estaba aquí.
Yo pensé, es que no puso fecha.
Sí, sí puse la fecha.
Viernes.
Mira.
Friday.
Next Thursday and Friday will be out of the office. 2 days, March 27th and 28th. That's why, and I even clarified, I said, here, bueno, pues yo puse aquí las fechas. Y yo puse la próxima, ¿verdad? Yo hice
Yo creí que este lunes.
El 20. Este fue el jueves. Pero sí, la idea sí, que la próxima. Ya puse las fechas. Pero bueno.
Yo creí que el viernes pasado, así como de no va a estar, entonces bueno, el lunes para lo más próximo a mi error. Entonces tengo falta de la sesión pasada.
Pues si no, no viniste.
Bueno, fue mi error.
So,
Okay.
bueno. Okay. So just bring me whatever you have, and we'll look at it. But yeah, try to start your data collection as soon as possible. And yeah, let me know if you have doubts or questions. We can take a look at it. Okay, Hope, I'm looking here at your let's see, your interview guide. And as we discussed today, you may want to have a set of questions that you ask before your observation and another set of questions that you ask your participants after you've observed. The questions that you currently have appear to be questions more appropriate for asking after you've observed because you're talking about asking about how students choose to work in small groups and so on. So this appears to be more related to information that you may need to ask after you have observed. Now the table here we talked about, as a tip, listing out the question words, which you've done here. But I'm wondering about the chart and having a space where they answered, and yeah, I'm not sure if the idea is that you're going to fill in this square, and it doesn't look like. I mean, you don't have a lot of space. I think all you need is just a list of question words, and then you take notes based on what they say, and you have a space here for field notes. I would just leave it at that. Just leave question words out. Create a list, and then whatever, however, the respondents or the teachers reply, you can just take notes however you want. You're going to later transcribe your interview, so that's where you're going to be analyzing how they answered. So I don't think you necessarily need a space for how they answered, but just notes, field notes, enough space on the actual instrument so that you can jot down just specific information, not necessarily everything they say. In fact, you're not going to be writing out everything they say. You're just going to be maybe taking notes about different keywords that they bring up that you might want to ask about later during the interview. So I would list out the key questions, okay, and list out these question words one time and leave it at that. I think your interview guide should be, no more than one page. So I think you can eliminate this chart, and all of this information, and just bring it into just a basically 3 or 4 key questions that you're going to ask, a list of the question words just to remind yourself the main research questions as you have here, and that's it. You can always take blank sheets of paper to, if you need additional space to take notes, but I don't think you're going to need that much space to take notes. Again, just a few keywords to help you as you're listening to what the respondent says, and preparing yourself for future questions during the same interview. So I would limit this, and then add maybe another set of questions. Maybe bring up the other set of questions first in the interview that you're going to plan on asking, before you observe, and that's what we talked about today. Now, the heading in this particular instrument, and I guess this would apply to the rest. Let me take a look here. Yeah, I would try to move the logo over. If it's problematic using the logo, it's optional. I mean, don't worry about the logo if it's hard to format it. But I would try to eliminate some of this white space and bring up the title. Maybe center. Single space this title so you can bring up the text and bring up all this information. The observation sheet, that is the title of the instrument you have here. That's good. I'm not sure if you need it again here, but I would here I would eliminate all the lines. So I would just have time, activity, and description with no lines, and single space, and basically that's it. That's all I would include here. So bring me your interview guide if you want to discuss it. We can look at that before you actually apply it. And if you do have any questions about my feedback, let me know.